I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You know, we talk about homelessness a lot on this show. It's an inescapable issue here in the Portland metro area. We often hear homelessness is tied to things like mental illness and addiction. Let's look at some of the numbers that we have in our area. We've told you about the point-in-time count that gives a very rough estimate of the unsheltered people in specific areas. Well, last year, the point-in-time count found over 6,600 homeless people in the Tri-County area. Of those surveyed, 36% said they have a mental health disorder, 35% deal with a substance use disorder, and 20% said they have both. That means that 2 out of every 3 people without a home said they experience either mental illness, addiction, or both. But making things more complicated is a common set of symptoms that often pop up when these things meet. Collectively, it's called psychosis. But what exactly does that mean? The Story's digital producer, Jamie Parfit, explains.
When we think about the crises of homelessness, addiction, and mental illness, we often think of the way these things can manifest in strange or dramatic behaviors. Behaviors that the rest of us may have a difficult time understanding. Dr. Maureen Murphy-Ryan is a resident in psychiatry at the University of Washington in Seattle. She's worked closely with clients who suffer from addiction and from severe mental illness, often without stable housing. Of particular interest to her are the acute symptoms of mental illness that often show up where these 3 things meet: psychotic symptoms. Most of us have observed someone suffering from psychotic symptoms. We may share a common image of what it looks like, though it's perhaps stereotypical. Dr. Murphy-Ryan conjured up, as an example, the idea of a disheveled-looking man walking down the street, talking to himself and gesturing to the air, seeming to be in a world of his own.
It's interesting. That's only a very small part of what psychosis is and what it means. So when we see somebody and they are, if somebody is hearing voices, hearing things that, the rest of us are not detecting, we would call that an auditory hallucination. And that's an example of one type of symptom of psychosis.
Mental health experts divide these symptoms into 2 types, positive and negative. A hallucination is considered a positive symptom, not because it's pleasant, but because it adds something to a person's experience, beyond what the rest of us would consider to be the evidence of our senses. Hallucinations can be auditory, visual, sometimes even physical sensations. Perhaps the most profound symptoms of psychosis come in the form of delusions, when the mind makes connections or creates narratives about the world that are not based in reality. But to someone suffering from them, they are just as real as anything else. Then there are the negative symptoms. Those are most noticeable in things like disorganization and isolation, things that subtract from someone's ability to function in daily life.
They can lose interest in things that they used to be very interested in. People may isolate. They may lose their ability to really detect subtle changes in other people's facial expressions. So they lose this kind of social richness of their life. And so the motivation for it and the ability to really pick up on things socially can really disappear.
While positive symptoms are perhaps the most noticeable, Murphy-Ryan explained that negative symptoms can have the larger impact on someone's ability to thrive, even survive. There are at least one way that someone can end up losing their housing or lack the wherewithal to navigate a way back into housing once unhoused. Substance use can be a major risk factor for psychotic symptoms, both through intoxication and withdrawal. The big culprits, according to Murphy-Ryan, are stimulants like methamphetamine or Adderall, cannabis, and alcohol. Almost anyone can develop psychotic symptoms for a list of reasons, but because of these cause and effect relationships, addiction, homelessness, and psychotic symptoms often appear together, and they compound one another.
Having housing decreases the risk that you're going to have those psychotic symptoms. I mean, our reaction to substances is really influenced by our state, our environment. So having housing, even if you engage in the same behaviors, might decrease the adverse effects of substances, for example.
There's an ongoing debate about whether the way to address the issue is with a housing first or treatment first model. Dr. Murphy-Ryan thinks it's a false choice. For the best chance of helping people, she says, housing and treatment need to be provided together at the same time.
The housing first or treatment first models are a hot topic right now all across the country. Do one of those models make more sense to you, or do you agree with the doctor who says they need to happen at the same time? Let us know, will you? Send us an email. The address is thestory@kgw.com, or call and leave a voicemail, 503-226-5090. And if you'd like to learn more, and I mean a lot more, about psychosis, our digital producer Jamie wrote up a big-time web article that includes all kinds of information that we were not able to fit into this story. You can find it right now on kgw.com/thestory. Well, psychosis can happen to people in all walks of life. But here in the Portland area, psychotic episodes are most visible on the streets. I saw two people doing that very thing yesterday. There are people who work each and every day to reach out to those who are suffering, including those that have suffered themselves. David Molko spoke with a mom who turned her life around with recovery and hope. Now she's helping those on the streets, one person at a time.
You need some help up? No. Okay. Okay.
You might say her middle name is Compassion.
I'll see if I can get you a coat today, okay? A new coat, because your coat is ripping.
Because day in, day out, while folks wait for meals outside Old Town's Blanchet house,
Come on up.
Jennifer Kuhn provides both support and solutions.
I got an email back that you're supposed to go there and check in. You didn't do that? You're silly. They have a bed waiting for you. I love that I'm able to offer hope. You know, on the streets, really all you have is your word. If I say I'm going to get you a coat or get you a voucher or be here at 5 o'clock or I'm here and I'm good on my word. Okay?
And when it comes to the people suffering on Portland streets,
I'm Jen. Nice to meet you, hon. Okay? I'm sorry you're having a hard time.
whether from homelessness, substance abuse, or mental illness.
She's engaged to Garth Brooks.
Jen, as she's known, says she's able to connect.
I almost wore my AC/DC sweatshirt today. I know, right?
Because her life experience
Yeah.
gives her credibility.
It was a very dark time in my life. I just dug myself a hole and I could not get out of it.
From Vicodin to heroin to meth.
What were you trying to numb at the time?
Just life, just the things that we go through.
Losing touch with her children.
It's very lonely. I mean, I slept outside a lot. I remember waking up frozen to the ground.
And soon after, reality.
I remember being terribly paranoid. I remember hearing voices, thinking that people are after you that really aren't. And in your brain, this is very real.
Your marriage broke up. Mm-hmm. You lost your job.
Yes.
You couldn't see your kids.
Lost my license, got 2 DUIs. Yep. And found my way to treatment.
Though not before a grocery store encounter she'll never forget. What Jen calls her rock bottom.
I was filthy dirty and had abscesses on my arms, and my hair was filthy dirty, and I was probably stealing something to eat. And I saw my daughter. I hadn't seen her for a couple of years, and she saw me, and all I could do was run out the store. And she was wanting me to run to her. People are broken. There's a lot of hurt, there's a lot of pain.
Now, nearly 6 years into recovery, Jen has turned those hard lessons from 4 years of feeling helpless and numb into her life's work.
You can't learn it in a classroom, you can't read it in a book. You know, I've been there, I've done that, like literally. I've shot up heroin and I've eaten out of a garbage can. And I don't ever say I can't help anyone. Even if I have to call 911, I feel like I'm helping someone. Hi, honey. You're okay. I will. Are you okay to eat inside?
Okay. They won't leave me alone.
Okay. This is for Portland Street Response. We have a meal guest. We serve food to the folks outside, and we have a meal guest that's having a mental breakdown. And she requested that I call you. Everything's always a huge deal, a catastrophe with her. She needs a blanket, but you know, and someone's chasing her now is what she's saying. I used to think a lot of it was drugs until I worked here, and honestly, a lot more is mental health. It's a lot more mental health than I thought.
I think there's a stigma around mental health symptoms and illnesses in general.
With the bar when it comes to accessing inpatient mental health treatment, says Hazelden Betty Ford's Dr. Jeff Young, often set too high.
So I think if we had access to services at a lower level of intensity of illness, then we could treat people earlier. We could get more people into that optimal and safe environment.
We need more treatment. We do. We need more treatment. There were times when I was feared for my life. I've had a knife pulled on me, and I was backed up in this corner, and he came at me with a knife. I mean, I was terrified.
So what brings you back day after day then?
I just can't give up.
Thank you for never looking down on us, a client wrote on this napkin. I mean, I know you're short, but your love is gigantic.
There's a lot of judgment. I think it's important to not judge people.
I want to talk about hope. What gives you hope?
People that are coming back, people that just keep coming back and trying harder each day. I brought 3 of these little blankets, and I'll get you a coat also.
Because giving up on them,
I can call and see if Bybee has room for you.
whatever their circumstance and their story,
There's a lot more good than there is bad.
would mean giving up on herself.
I have a job I'm proud of. My kids are back in my life. I love my apartment. I have a brand new car. So I am a living example of what life can be like after those dark days.
A living example, she says, who will only work as hard as the folks she's helping, which, yes, means friendly, but often firm. For example, she pressed charges against the man who threatened her with a knife. He did go to jail, Jen says, and then got the treatment he needed. And while she says seeing people succeed, however small those victories are, is rewarding in and of itself, that is not why she does this work. She does it because the reaching out, the problem solving, the compassion, again, without judgment, is a reminder. One that keeps her sober and, in her words, that feels good. Pat.
David, I love that story. Love Jen. And I think that people who think the world's going to hell in a handbasket need to remember people like Jen are out there. Thanks for bringing her to us.
You bet.
Still to come on the story, an update on ambulance response times in Multnomah County. We previously told you how they were lagging last summer because of the county's rare 2 paramedic per ambulance rule. Investigative reporter Evan Watson got a new batch of data today, bringing the problem into sharper focus. Should we expect anything to change? Find out when the story returns. An update tonight on a story we've been tracking for months. Multnomah County ambulances are getting worse at responding to emergencies on time. Reporter Evan Watson has been on top of this story for months, looking at paramedic shortages and the county's 2 paramedic requirement for ambulance crews. Evan, what's the new data say?
Well, between September and February, about 1 out of every 3 ambulances in Multnomah County didn't get to emergencies on time, which is within 8 minutes at the county standard. So that can be concerning in a field where seconds can often make the difference.
Sure.
Multnomah County and ambulance provider AMR agree that ambulance crews should get to 90% of 911 calls on time. In the most recent reported months, that's happening about 68% of the time. AMR blames a shortage of paramedics, saying that staffing issues are causing delays, but the county and AMR disagree about how to fix this. AMR wants to lower the standards for EMS workers, hiring lower qualified EMTs rather than paramedics to fill the gaps. But so far, the county is sticking to its 2 paramedic requirement for ambulances, saying it creates better care.
It is the way the EMS is configured. We need the right resources at the right place at the right time. I can tell you, if I have 2 trained paramedics, with you having a cardiac arrest, they're going to do a better job than 1 medic. Guaranteed.
It's worth noting that this current data only shows up until February, so we don't know the last 2 months of data and how the 911 response times have been looking. Also interesting that just in the last 3 weeks, AMR Multnomah County rolled out a BLS, Basic Life Support System, which are ambulance crews that involve just 2 EMTs, no paramedics at all. The intent of that is that those lower acuity calls, the minor calls, they can triage that out at the dispatch level and send just the EMT crews while the paramedics hopefully get freed up and can respond and have more availability to get to these other calls, hopefully boosting the response times. But county leaders say it might take a while to see if that's happening in fact.
Speaking of county leaders, Sharon Myron, who's an ER doctor and a county commissioner, told me that she now supports the AMR position of 1 paramedic and 1 EMT, and she's going to start pushing for that at the county level.
And that's fascinating because for decades now, Multnomah County is stuck by this 2 paramedic standard. And when looking at 2 paramedics, they've said it provides the best care. That's the reasoning from the EMS medical director. So if there's movement from the top there in the county to take another look at this, it could mean that maybe some balls are starting to roll now, and we'll see if there's any actual action come out of that.
Yeah, and I'm sure you'll be on top of it.
You got it, Pat.
Thank you, Evan Watson. Still to come on the story, as the number of Portland police officers continues to grow after bottoming out in recent years, the chief announced today that the traffic division is making a comeback. Why advocates say it's just one piece of the puzzle. Plus, a major federal court ruling this week concerning a man named Frank Gable. He spent nearly 30 years behind bars after being convicted of killing the chief of Oregon prisons back in 1989. He was released in 2019 thanks to new evidence, but the possibility of being retried for the crime had him nervous about every knock on the door until now. We'll explain when the story returns.
Straight ahead at 6:30, warmer weather means wildfire season may not be far off. What parts of Oregon could see a delay and where it could be an early start. Plus, a week of Republican walkouts, an update on all the talk about the Senate to try to get some sort of action, and a new mystery on the Oregon coast as a second sinkhole opens up on the dune, and you'll never guess where. That's next at 6:30. Hope to see you then.
Welcome back. More than 2 years after the Portland Police Bureau disbanded the traffic division, the band, as they say, is getting back together. Chief Chuck Lavelle made the announcement this morning. Back in February of 2021, individual precincts were really struggling with staffing, so the traffic unit was dissolved to allow those officers to move into patrol positions. But now that the staffing numbers are coming back up, the traffic team is back. Mike Benner has our story.
As interim director of the nonprofit Oregon Walks, Zachary Lauritsen has one goal and one goal only:
keeping people safe on our streets.
Lauritsen says it starts with good, solid infrastructure. Then, he says, comes the enforcement.
We think automated enforcement is the number one first step, so red light enforcement and speeding enforcement through cameras. And then we think that there is absolutely a role for human enforcement, too.
Important work we haven't seen much of since February 2021, when the Portland Police Bureau's traffic division was disbanded. But on Tuesday, Portland Police Chief Chuck Lavelle announced that he's bringing back the traffic detail.
It'll be limited, smaller than it was before, but we'll have 10 motorcycle officers, 2 officers in cars, and 2 sergeants on an afternoon shift.
They'll be in high crash areas of the city, looking for dangerous driving behaviors like speeding and driving while intoxicated, among other things. And it couldn't come at a better time. Last year, 68 people died in traffic-related crashes in Portland. 32 of them were pedestrians.
Now that 68 is a high since 1987, and that 32 pedestrian fatalities is a high since 1948. We all live, work, vacation, or commute in this city, and it's our responsibility to help make sure that your roadways are a little bit safer.
And if anybody appreciates that, it's Oregon Walk's interim director, Zachary Lauritsen, who's a firm believer that enforcement plays a pivotal role in safer streets.
There are people who do not follow the rules of the road at all. They're incredibly dangerous, and we need officers who are out there enforcing the rules of the road.
I'm Mike Benner for KGW News.
I don't know about you, but I say it's about time. With Rose Festival right around the corner, more officers will be added to the traffic detail before it's scaled back to what was announced today. It will be some combination of 14 officers working nights and early mornings, 7 days a week. Meantime, a man who was once convicted of killing the chief of Oregon's prisons no longer has the shadow of the law trailing close behind. Frank Gable has been released from all supervision. In 1990, Gable was sentenced to life in prison without parole for killing Michael Franke the year before. Franke was stabbed to death on the grounds of the Oregon State Hospital in the early evening hours. Nobody saw the attack, and the murder weapon was never found. 4 years ago, a judge threw out Gable's conviction. He was released from prison but remained under federal supervision with the possibility of the state of Oregon retrying him for the crime. Until now. In a ruling yesterday, Judge John Acosta ordered Gable's unconditional release and wrote, "The state of Oregon and any subdivision or county thereof is hereafter barred from rearresting, reindicting, or retrying petitioner for the murder of Michael Franke." So what happened to allow Gable to be freed in the first place back in 2019? Well, the U.S. Court of Appeals agreed with a lower court ruling that no reasonable juror would have convicted Gable in light of that new evidence. And what was that evidence? Well, state investigators used widely discredited polygraph and interrogation techniques as a psychological club to get statements from others against Gable. And that the trial court was wrong to not allow the evidence that another man had confessed multiple times to the murder and had shared details of the crime that were not publicly known. And last but not least, nearly all witnesses from Gable's original trial recanted. KGW interviewed Gable in 1990 before he was arrested for the murder. He happened to be in prison at the time for a different crime. Even then, he said he didn't do it.
I believe that I walked into a complicated drug ring and really don't know how complicated it was until now.
And you think maybe that drug ring had something to do with Franke's murder?
I believe so, yeah. I personally could never see myself taking a human life. I've been so scared, and, each day you don't know if you're getting out in 52 days or if you're going to get put to death penalty for a crime you didn't commit. You know, so yeah, I'm scared. You know, more scared than I've ever been in my life.
One of the people pushing to free Gable was the brother of the killed prisons director, Michael Franke. In 2019, Kevin Franke told us this case had two victims, his brother and Frank Gable, who spent nearly 30 years in prison. But the fear of arrest and a new trial is gone now for Frank Gable. He's now 63 years old and lives in Kansas with his wife, according to the Oregonian. They report that Gable works for a concrete contractor and has established himself in the community. And before we go tonight, let's highlight a few of the positive viewer comments that we received in the last few days to end things on, kind of a high note. We got this from Matthew. You guys are doing a great job. We watch every night and love your take on things. Thanks, and thank you, Matthew. Stephen says, love the story, fewer topics, deeper dives, and Pat's occasional, not overbearing, reasoned perspective. Keep it up. Thank you. And many of our viewers watch on YouTube, like Wes from Anaheim, California. Thank you for the great show. I've only visited Portland twice. There's a charm in the city that I miss. I can't wait to return. It's the reason I keep watching KGW News on YouTube. I think I watch your station more than my own local news. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for watching, everyone. And if you like the work we do here on The Story, tell your friends, will you? That's the end of our show. Remember, the story, though, our collective story, that never ends. Be sure to tune in this Thursday, by the way, for a special edition of The Story, where we're going to talk about downtown Portland and its future. It's not one you're going to want to miss. In the meantime, stick around for the news at 6:30, and I'll see you tomorrow.